can't stay alive without your love. Won't you take me to Funky Town? 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 Rouge.
Where's all my soul sisters? Let me hear your flow, sisters.
Hey, sister, go, sister, soul, sister, flow, sister. Hey, sister, go, sister, soul, sister, go. He met Mama Lot down in old Moulin Rouge, strutting her stuff on the street. She said, hello, hey, Joe, you wanna give it a go? Get you, yeah, yeah, da, da.
Let them know we bout that cake straight out the gate. We independent women, some mistake us for whores. I'm saying, why spend mine when I can spend yours? Disagree? Well, that's you, and I'm sorry. I'ma keep playing these cats out like a car. High heel shoes, getting love from the dudes, 4 badass chicks from the Moulin Rouge.
Hey, sisters, soul sisters, better get that dough, sisters.
We drink wine with diamonds in the glass by the case, the meaning of expensive taste.
You want an inche, yeah, yeah.
Come on,
mocha chocolate.
What? Rio Lady Mama. One more time, come on now.
What are you looking at?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2022 Capital City Pride Speaker Series. My name is Maida Burkic. I am the CDE Director, and we're very excited to have a conversation this evening with a fantastic human, Ruth Marimo. Hi, Ruth.
Hi.
We also have Dan Jensen, who's our board advisor.
Hi there, everyone.
And a little bit on Ruth. She was born and raised in the southern African country of Zimbabwe. She is a lesbian, LGBTQ activist, immigration reform activist, a writer, a public speaker, owner of a successful cleaning business, and a mother of 2 beautiful children.
That would be correct.
We also want to thank our sponsor, of course. Without them and their support, events like this would not be possible. Would also like to extend a special thank you to our host this evening for the use of this fantastic space, and especially Bravo, who is our sponsor tonight. So,
Matisse, could I just add in quick that we showed some video on the lead up to the event tonight to shamelessly plug our gala, which will occur on March 5th, coming up soon. So the entertainment that you might have seen is called Gem Fatale. They'll be joining us at the gala, and we are super excited to host them in Des Moines. So please come out and join us and welcome Gem Fatale.
yeah, I'm super excited about the gala. So Ruth, we have a lot of questions for you. We also have a live feed on Facebook, so please ask us questions. We have Hillary here, who's our vice president, that will throw us our questions that come in live. So, Ruth, you're an immigrant from Zimbabwe. I'm an immigrant from Bosnia. I know what it was like growing up for me, but I was always curious, what is up? You were also an orphan, right? So I'm curious, what was like growing up in Zimbabwe as an orphan?
Yeah, so it was, I come from a culture where, unfortunately, traumatic events don't really get talked about. So I lost my mother to suicide when I was 5, and then about shortly after her death, when we were actually moving to stay with one of my aunts, my little sister, who was 3 at the time, contracted measles and then died too, a little while after my mother died. And what happened after that was that I basically was moved into different families of siblings of my mother. So I lived with all of my mother's sisters at some point of my life. And it was hard because, I also come from a culture where girls are not very valued, and kind of like just looked at as maybe we don't have much prospects in the future. And then you add the orphan factor. So basically my experience was that I was never treated like my cousins, no matter what home I was in. So that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. But I was also such a resilient child, and I was also really smart. So even though at home I never had, equal footing as my cousins, because I always had to do more work. I had to, I was never, like, for example, the very first home that we lived in, my cousins went to a private school, and I went to the local public school, and those of, which was a very different kind of school. But then at school, that is where I found my place because I was smart. So at school, the teachers always noticed me, and I always, got kind of seen as who I truly am. But I was also lucky in that my grandmother always followed me, my mother's mother, and I think, she loved me. She actually had lived with me from the time I was born because my mother was a 16-year-old when she had me, and she had to go back to school, and my grandmother took care of me until I was 4 and moved with my mother. So I also had that constant, unwavering love from my grandmother, who treated me like I was special. So it's one of those things, like it was a hard experience, but I also, at the same time, I also had places where I was grounded and I could grow. And I think that's why I'm not messed up as an adult.
Yeah, it's almost growing up in an environment like that gives you more ammunition and purpose to succeed and prove everybody wrong. So you work extra hard to make something out of yourself, right? Um, you've done a TEDx talk, you wrote a book. I mean, your story is just amazing. I read your book, I watched the TEDx talk. I actually watched your talk right before you came in this evening. And I watched it numerous times, and I'm always shocked by like your resilience and stuff. And I know, going from Zimbabwe, you also moved to England. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience through life, going from Zimbabwe, going to England, and coming to this point here?
Yeah, so I left Zimbabwe in 1998. I had just completed my A-level exams, so that's like the very last year of high school. And at the time, there were signs that the Zimbabwean economy was starting to collapse. So people that could get out were getting out. And my aunt knew a Zimbabwean doctor in England who needed someone to like be a nanny to their kid or something like that. So that was my way out of Zimbabwe. And then, so I was 18 at the time. And then I got to England, and I had another aunt who lived there. And, they take me to this doctor's house, where I was supposed to go. And they tell my aunt that they were going to pay me like £100 a month or something like that. And my aunt who had lived in England was like, no, that's slavery.
Right.
So she came back and got me the next day because she's like, no, you can't pay someone £100 a month. That's literally like slavery. So I don't know, if I didn't have that aunt, I don't know how things would have turned out. Ironically, I ended up staying with that aunt who lived there, and then I got a job at a furniture shop, and I was making £100 a day. So but I needed something more, kind of like more stable. And then, my aunt who I'd lived with from the time I was 10 till I was 18 knew someone who lived in Omaha, Nebraska. And she was like, oh yeah, why don't you try Omaha, Nebraska? And so at 19, that's how I ended up in Omaha, Nebraska. Everyone is always like, why Omaha, Nebraska? When you're an immigrant, everyone's like, why didn't you choose like New York or LA? But that's my aunt knew someone in Omaha, Nebraska, and that's how I ended up there. And that was interesting because I'm a 19-year-old. I don't know anything about anything. The person I came to stay with wasn't really interested in helping me out. Luckily, she had a sister who just happened to come by one day, and she was like, who's that? Who's this person here in your place? And that sister is the one who like ran around and got me a Social Security card and started giving me driving lessons. This was at a time when you could just come in with a visitor's visa and get a Social Security card. Back in 99, you can't do that anymore. And then, then I started working as a CNA at a nursing home. Then I met my ex-husband, who's the father of my now 15 and 17-year-old, when I was 21. Quickly discovered that actually, I think I had known that I liked girls when I was maybe 5 or 7. I think when I was 7, I had a crush on this one girl. I'll never forget her name. Her name was Esther. Esther, if you're out there.
Esther, if you're out there, Ruth is in Omaha, Nebraska, anxiously waiting.
I just want to thank her for because literally, I've never forgotten that I had a crush on this girl.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Because I feel this is going to come in now that we're talking about crushes. Okay. Are you single?
I am single.
Are you ready to mingle?
I actually...
These live questions are going to start coming in.
I'm freshly single. I think I'll be ready in about 2 months, but I could start talking.
Okay, Omaha's far away, yeah, so it's going to take 2 months of... Okay, sorry, continue.
So anyways, I think I'd known that I had, and every stage of my life, there was always, like, no matter what age I'm at, I can go back to that time in my memory, and there's a girl that stands out that I had a crush on, even through high school, and then there were the female teachers. So anyways, I married this man when I was 23, and we had 2 kids. And then I was in nursing school at the time. And in nursing school was this redhead woman named Heather. Heather, if you're out there.
I see a pattern here. It's
No, I actually recently reached out to Heather because I'd never thanked her in all this time, because she's actually the reason I actually finally came out, because we had a final celebration to celebrate the end of nursing school, and it was at this bar, and actually my ex-husband was with me, but God, I danced with Heather on the dance floor, and she touched me, and I was like, what is this fire? Like, what? So it literally, that is my coming out story. Like, I went home that night, and I was like, look, I'm definitely a gay person, and I should not be in this. I mean, that marriage had its own issues. He was very abusive. In fact, once I confessed all of that and wanted a separation, he turned me into immigration, and that's how I spent the month in jail awaiting deportation. And that's where my memoir came from, because when I was in jail, that was in 2008, because I had lost a mother at 5, and then, I'd never known my father. And, when you're deported, you can't even come back to the country for 10 years. So in my children were 2 and, they were 2 and 4 at the time. And so in my kind of depressed, hopeless state in jail, thinking that I was literally leaving the country, being deported, I thought that I thought back to all the questions that I would have wanted to know about my mother. And so every day we would get you get a TV program in jail, and we have pencils. You can't have pens, so I would just collect those, and I just started thinking of questions that my children might want to know about me. And so then I had a moment where I was like, I should just go back to the beginning and just write my life, and and then they'll understand why I wasn't there to raise them. And it was just really this kind of raw, frantic, hopeless. That's how my memoir was born. That's how I started writing my memoir. And I just kept writing and writing on the backs of these TV programs in jail. And then when I did get out, luckily my aunt had moved here and had gotten, she had filed for asylum, because she had come as an adult, so she had done the research and knew, she did, I had kind of overstayed my visa because I was 19. I didn't know anything. I didn't know at the time that I could have filed for asylum. There were so many other ways that I could have, worked it so that I wouldn't be undocumented, but no one gave me that information. But anyway, so my aunt did, got me a lawyer, and that's how I ended up getting out after a month. And luckily, there is something called VAWA. I think Trump tried to get rid of it, Violence Against Women's Act, which is what allowed me to stay, because then there'd been a history of abuse in my marriage, and he actually turned me in. So, so that's, once I got out, I think because I faced my biggest fear, because my biggest fear at one point was someone discovering that I'm undocumented and what happens with that, or someone discovering that I am a lesbian and what happens with that. And it all happened all at once. I faced all my greatest fears in one shot. So once I got out, for me, it was just a new lease of life. I was just I am going to live as loud as I can, and I'm just gonna do, I think people don't understand, if you follow me, you know that I'm pretty, I'm just I am. I say what I want, and I live pretty, but it came from that. It came from this, being an orphan and always being the last one, being at the bottom of the barrel, living through this existence where I'm closeted, and then having someone use my undocumentedness to try to literally separate me from my children, to surviving all of that and kind of getting a new lease of life. And it's almost like, I feel like, you know, it was like when people face a health battle and get to live again, that kind of sense of like, I get to redo life on my own terms. And that's what I've been doing since 2008, 2009 when I got out. And yeah.
Can I?
Yes.
So we had the opportunity to chat a little bit before the event started tonight, and one thing that really stands out to me is you are such a gracious optimist. It really feels like, you know, we all have those moments in our life when life is hard. There's things in front of us that seem, you know, unattainable or unreachable. And listening to you feels like it just, in a way, although I know there was many struggles, I don't mean to say it like that, but that you approach it in such a gracious way. And I was wondering if maybe you could speak a little bit about, you know, when something is challenging in your life, about what your mental state is and about how you have overcome some of these things. Because, you know, many people have struggles that, you know, they really want to get through, but sometimes don't know how. So maybe just a bit of insight into how you yourself achieve that.
Yeah, so I had this moment actually when I was in jail awaiting deportation, where it occurred to me that if I had not lost my mother at such a young age, and had not survived all of the struggles that I had already survived up to that point, that I don't know if I would have survived that kind of anguish. But I think, and I realized that actually, you know, when you are, first of all, you're born to a 16-year-old mother, and your grandmother raises you for 4 years, then your mother literally like dies tragically. At the same time, actually, you know, my mother had a boyfriend who, on the day she died, drank rat poison and died 3 months later. So, like, and even in the ways that I was othered in all of these homes, that builds a kind of emotional resilience that's not even, it's not like I was aware that that is what is happening. And one thing that happened in my life is, and I talk about this a lot, in all of the homes that I lived in, my aunts and uncles wanted to make sure that I was functional and responsible, and they didn't do that with their own kids. They, like, in their minds, I had nobody, so I needed to know how to survive. And it's interesting because as adults, my cousins don't have the kind of resilience that I have. They struggle, so it's been interesting to see how, and I think I was telling you earlier that, like, actually, because I had that experience, then I grew up and I just took the unfairness out of it with my own kids, but I realized that, oh my God, like, actually all of these things, you know, that I was given, maybe in an unfair way, actually built the resilience that I have, the kind of emotional resilience that I have. So it was really just kind of like being thrown in the deep end when you're a child and figuring out how to swim. And there is something to that. There is something to that, because I do recognize it, not just with people in general, but even with my own cousins. I do see that we're built very differently. They just do not have the same kind of, whether it's emotional resilience or drive or even optimism, you know. So I think there is something to that experience of, like, if you do experience these, like, incredible hardships early in life, and it doesn't happen for everyone. We know that trauma affects people differently. I just happen to be lucky that I'm the 10% where my trauma built me to be stronger and happier and more resilient and want to be, maybe, you know, another thing that happened when I was growing up is that I was always an outsider, so I always looked in, like, because I was always set aside, so I was always watching what everyone was doing, right? Or I always, like, for example, not having a mother, I always had to imagine what I would have wanted my mother to be like. So I'm now the mother to my kids, who is the mother of my imagination when I was little. Like, what kind of mother would I have wanted? But if you just have a mother, you don't have the chance to do that. You don't have a chance to go, what kind of mother would I have wanted? So in a way, that's an advantage, at least for my kids and who I get to be, because I had to really think about things that other people that have certain privileges just don't have to think about those things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll say from my own perspective, and I'm sure for many of the viewers as well, it's very inspirational. I mean, we can all really appreciate your tenacity and really, I don't know, just willingness to just move forward and do what's best. And no, it's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So we'll take a quick commercial break here, and we'll be back.
He met Mama Lot down in old Moulin Rouge, strutting her stuff on the street. She said, hello, hey Joe, you wanna give it a go? Gitchy, yeah, yeah, zata. Gitchy, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mocha chocolate, yeah, yeah. Creole lady, Mama Lot. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? Voulez-vous coucher avec moi? He sat in a pool while she freshened up. Boy drank all that magnolia wine. All her blacks and sheets waist on the free. Gitchy, yeah, yeah, da da. Gitchy, yeah, yeah, here, oh yeah. Mocha chocolate, yeah, yeah. Creole lady, Mama. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir? Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
We come through with the money in the garter bags. Let them know we bout that cake straight out the gate. We independent women, some mistake us for whores. I'm saying, why spend mine when I can spend yours? Disagree? Well, that's you, and I'm sorry. I'ma keep playing these cats out like a car. High heel shoes, getting love from the dudes, 4 badass chicks from the Moulin Rouge.
Hey, sisters, soul sisters, better get that dough, sisters.
We drink wine with diamonds in the glass by the case, the meaning of expensive taste.
You want an inche, yeah, yeah.
Come on.
Mocha chocolate.
What? Rio Lady Mama. One more time, come on now.
Savage piece inside, roll until he cries.
are you looking at?
Well, welcome back, everyone. We just wanted to, again, do a small shameless plug on our advertisements during the break here. Again, we are having Gem Fatale, who are coming in from Baltimore, Maryland, and they'll be performing all kinds of 70s throwbacks. They're three sisters who are amazing. You guys will really enjoy it. Please join us at the gala.
I have another shameless plug. I think we were talking on break, and I really want to know how many girls actually tapped into our Facebook Live asking for Ruth's phone number. Because as you all know, we have this Love is Love reception during Pride Month in June that I'm really trying to cover right now. You know, kill two birds with one stone. On the topic of Facebook Live, I think we did have a couple questions from Hillary there.
Now that you're able to live out loud, what are you most grateful for that you didn't have 10 years ago, or when you were sitting in jail thinking about what my life is going to be?
Oh my God. So this thing.
So to repeat the question that we kept coming in is now that, living your best life and you're out of jail, you're not dealing with drama, I'm probably not rephrasing that right. What are you most proud of?
So once I came out, literally once I was out of jail, I already had a girlfriend. But something happened once I came out. Once I owned my sexuality, I would be it happens today. I can be at the grocery store and women can just read that I'm a lesbian. Women look at me like they want to eat me, and I'm like,
Right.
no, honestly, that I'm saying the thing that is the difference between my coming out and not, I don't know how I didn't notice that before, but something women do. Women just look at me I don't know, and that's been amazing. But I'm also grateful to just be living an authentic life. I really, the way that I feel that if I died tomorrow, I died happy. I really, really did. There was a suffocation to my life before I came out and before I faced my worst fears that is hard to explain. There was just a misery there, almost like a cloud over everything. And that doesn't exist anymore and hasn't for a very long time. It doesn't, even when Donald Trump was elected, I was sad, but then the next day, I was like, oh my God, the sun is out. Life is great. There's just, it's almost there's never a truly bad day. There's just appreciation for just being alive and just being fully myself. And another thing, actually, is I've given my children a happy mother. And that to me has been one of the, and I think about that. I think about, let's say I had ignored, who I am and I'd stayed, in this miserable straight marriage with their father. My kids would have never had a happy mother. And seeing who they are because they've been raised by a happy mother it's something you can't, it's hard to describe, literally I walk in the room and my kids automatically just smile. My kids just, it's almost, it's like magic. There's this thing where they're I'm happy, so they're happy. And it's there's no time that I, make eye contact with my kids and they don't smile great big. So I think maybe, there's a lot. There's a lot to just owning yourself and being yourself,
And when they look at you as a mom, it empowers them to be brave, be happy and be their true authentic self and overcome obstacles as they come, right? And on the gay side, I think you just have the shiny rainbow over you. So that's why everybody levitates toward you.
I don't know if it's the dreads, but man, strange random chicks just dig me. They just, I mean,
That happened to me as an immigrant. I was closeted for so long, and then I found out that I was gay, and I was like, "Oh my God, let me live my best life!" Right?
And
But
then,
that's
right?
a whole nother
like
book.
You're like, I'm just trying to buy tomatoes, and she's just like.
So one thing you had mentioned, you got out of jail, and
Yeah.
you had a girlfriend. Like I watched Too Much Orange Is the New Black and Wentworth, obviously. Like, where'd you meet this girlfriend? How did this come about? I know this is not an important topic, but I'm curious.
Oh
like,
my
I
God.
would never
Okay,
survive
so
in jail.
so literally, like, my ex-husband was still living under the same roof. We hadn't even like officially separated yet. But just because the night with Heather happened, and I was like, dude, I'm literally like gay. And I'm never sleeping with you. And then, so this is another thing that happened. Like, I'm so serious. Once I said that, like, obviously he was hoping that I wasn't serious or I didn't mean it. But like, if he even attempted to come close, I would literally throw up. Like my body just couldn't fake, couldn't pretend, not even for one more second. Like it was just, like I think I had just suppressed who I am for so long that like something inside of me couldn't do it even for another second. But anyways, I think I told him that I was gay in like, gosh, maybe in June, and by September I had a girlfriend. Like we met on this site called it was called Girl to Girl or something like that. It was a long time. It was in 2008. So like it was the first internet dating site and stuff, and she was yeah.
So you stuck to your 2-3 months time frame between the breakup. So I guess we determined that the prerequisite is your name has got to be Heather, a redhead Heather out there. I think we had another question on live too.
So you talked a little bit about your children and your resilience. Do your children have that same resilience? Because I think you're an oddity. Most people that do have that kind of trauma don't have that, and you do. Have you passed that on to your children?
So the question was, do your children have the same type of resilience that you have?
So I think that there are some things that they are not going to have just because they haven't had the same experience. What I have done, though, however, is all of the things that were positive. So, for example, the being taught how to do things at an early age. I really tried to pass that on. So, for example, my kids started doing their own laundry at 7. Like, when I say at 7, I mean I haven't touched my kids' clothes since they were 7 years old. Like, I really mean they started doing all their laundry at 7. They started, they were 3 and 4.5, and I would just let them make breakfast, and they would make these ugly pancakes with eggshells in them that were undercooked. But guess what? By the time they were 8, 9, 10, they were making gourmet meals. They could bake everything. So I really kind of tried to impart those things. Like I was telling you about the experience where when my daughter was 10, I would park in the parking lot and have her go in the store by herself and do her own shopping. And even though she was anxious and nervous at 10, well, by the time she was 12, she could just do that easily. And then by the time she was 14, she was driving herself and going to the mall. So there was something that I took out of my own growing up where I was taught to be an adult early, and I wasn't sheltered. I would just be put on a bus at 10 and had to navigate so many different cities and stops, and I've tried to do that with my kids. So my kids, I feel like, are more resilient and way more functional than the average American 15-year-old. For sure. But, my kids haven't had to go through the same kind of suffering. So there's a difference, but they definitely, I am surprised at their resilience. I'm surprised at their functionality just because they also grew up in this culture, and I know how these people in this culture are, but they are definitely not, they definitely are more me than they are the average American, for sure. Yes.
I think in being an immigrant myself, they sometimes say the kids can get way too Americanized, right? We may not be not a bad thing at all, but sometimes you kind of lose track of being that young adult and learning ways for yourself to be self-dependent in the world and survive. And I know you're very proud of your kids. I watch you post how many scholarships they get and stuff like that, and it makes me proud when I read that, even though I've never met him, right? So I know, like, in our community here in Des Moines, we have a lot of, like, immigrants from Somalia. Right now, it's a big influx of Afghan communities. A lot of them are Muslim. I'm Muslim. You went through the struggles of being a member of the LGBT community by being, from Zimbabwe. I went through the same struggle. I feel like being Bosnian is just not something that's welcomed or talked about and stuff like that. So what did you say to a girl or a boy or a trans person out there that might be from these immigrant communities, like to empower them to really be brave, come out and like live their true authentic lives rather than be stuck and uncomfortable, kind of like you were in your marriage, right? Because you weren't potential, because everybody at the end of the day, you have one life to live and you deserve to be happy, right? So how do you empower these kids to open that door wide, be proud, and know that like things get better and they deserve to live their life to their fullest potential?
I will say that as immigrants, we do face a much harder hurdle being part of the LGBT community. For example, when I came out, my own aunt had a prayer meeting for me to try to even though I literally helped everyone come here, helped everyone relocate, all of a sudden everyone was worried about my kids, even though, I mean, who I am as a parent is who I am as a parent. And I just had to be brave. I just had to stand in my own truth. Like, I just had to do, I knew that if I was happy and myself, then everyone else would be, that would help everyone else. And the interesting thing is this. So when I first came out, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago, I'd get death threats from other Africans, especially Zimbabweans. When my book came out, Zimbabwean media would hijack any interview I did and they would spin it in Zimbabwean media to literally make me a monster. Mm-hmm. I would be flooded with hate mail and death threats and all of that. And it was really hard. It was really, really, like, I am the first person in the entire history of my family to not only publicly come out, but to also write a book. But I stood in my own truth, and I never cowered down to, the hate. And it's been interesting because the other day, maybe was it last week, I said something about, it was my birthday. Around my birthday, I was like, if someone asked you how Ruth lived her life, what would you say? And guess what? Zimbabweans over and over were like, she was an incredible mother. She was, all the things that they were praying for, like all the things that they said I couldn't be when I came out, the same exact people were singing praises, talking about how I've inspired them, talking about and this is, so I want young people to understand that time is the ultimate equalizer. It's the ultimate proof. So things may be hard now, but if you give things time. So for example, the people that believed that I would be a horned devil, when I came out, they don't believe that because they've had a chance to see that, wow, the sky didn't fall out. In fact, I've done everything I've set out to do, not only me, but my kids have, and my kids are like just these amazing, loving, accomplished human beings. So there's no denying the goodness in who I am, no matter what you believed when I came out. And so time, and And I've seen this shift just from my own people where, gosh, they, like they were wrong, right? But part of it was, well, they hadn't known anyone who was gay and publicly out, right? So it's also coming from, like, if you know someone, you can't hate someone you know. So a lot of it is, if you are the first, gay Muslim kid in your immigrant community, some of that hatred is coming from a place of they've never known anyone to be publicly out. So their fears are coming from that. And if they know you and you just stand in your own truth, eventually they're forced to change them. So I've really seen, whether it's within my own family, whether it's within my own community, there's a real, I think 3-4 years into coming out, then I was getting African media actually wanting to do interviews that were positive. So there's something about time and standing in your own truth that then, because if people don't know what they don't know. And so for me, I've just seen kind of like the transformation and also not just, not in the general, population, but even within my own family, right? Like, so I have nieces that have been, at a very young age, been like, I'm bisexual. Well, that's because they've got an aunt who is like, so they know that they can just do that, So it's almost like we also have that duty to be the cycle breakers, the people that are my kids. My daughter has a gay. I have 2 straight kids, and I don't know how that happened. I'm like, really? Like, you both have to be straight? Like, what the hell? But anyways, but my daughter is a best, gay BFF. They're friends who are, because to them they've grown up exposed to everyone, and so they also, how they move in the world is completely different. How my nieces and nephews move through the world is not only that, I've since had Africans who have gay kids, who now come to me, and use me as a point of reference because, their kids turned out to be gay. So it's hard. It's hard to be the first. It's hard, but there is so, over time, man, the kind of change you can create in just a whole group, like even beyond what you even is really worth it. So yeah, they just have to. In the beginning, I found the communities that welcomed me, and that's really important. But eventually, yes, people come around, and you do change hearts and minds, and you don't know who you're inspiring, so you need to be brave enough to just do it.
Yeah, I think remembering, people are naturally scared, like, of the unknown, right? So the fear is real just because they're uneducated. So, like, to your point, educate, but also try to be the best version of yourself, so they might have preconceived, notions of what being a member of the LGBTQ community might be and have like negative thoughts about it. So being the best version of yourself and going out there, use that anger and that negativity as your motivation to be the best version of yourself and prove them wrong, right? So what do you feel like now? What is the current environment in like Africa or Zimbabwe for the LGBT community, right? Do you see that it has evolved over the years from when you were there versus like now? Because I know there's still some countries, right, where being LGBTQ is punishable by death, right?
Yeah, so right now I feel like Africa is going through the things that maybe America went through during the way back when you had the the riots in New York. So it's this in between place where it's still dangerous to be out, but then there's also this undercurrent where there are LGBTQ groups, Facebook groups, and they have LGBTQ underground organization. Like I belong to a lot of those organizations. In the same time, outwardly, there's a lot of resentment and hate, and it's still not safe. But but the movement is happening. And then there are young people that are, because of the internet, right? Like, so for example, I have so many young LGBTQ Zimbabweans who find me. I don't know how, but because the internet exists.
That rainbow again.
Yeah, like, so, so it works, this magic. And then all of a sudden, this young person who I've never met, who's all the way there, is like, oh my God, because I see you living that way, I know that I can too. So that, that has made a lot of difference where, like, I see these kids and I'm like, oh my God, like, you mean I could have come out in high school and had girlfriends? Dang, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I see them doing it, even though, the laws are still behind, even though the attitudes are still behind. There is still the movement, and the momentum is definitely there. It's it's definitely happening. And another thing is, those of us who are in safe countries are living fully, and that makes, so for example, I know communities of Zimbabwean lesbians in the UK, because they're in the UK and they literally, but then, lesbians in Zimbabwe are watching them. So there's this, it's an interesting time, because it's like, while yes, there are places that are dangerous and unsafe, they've found ways to have community and, found ways to communicate and link up to other people that are living elsewhere, and it's almost like they can mirror that and see that it's also possible for them. So it's an interesting thing that is happening. And then we do have, so for example, South Africa has marriage equality, LGBT, you've got, and now LGBTQ Africans are even bold enough to stage illegal pride marches. Even though they know that they're going to get arrested, they're still doing them. So there is definitely something that's happening where eventually, I think, just in the ways that, time, obviously, it took time for the U.S. to get to where it is. That's happening. Like, that ball has started rolling now, I think.
I just have to mention, yesterday, Mia Hamm, the great American soccer hero, was in Des Moines, and she spoke, and they were asking about her success, and she said, I stood on the shoulder of giants who really allowed me to, live my best life and do these things. And it just makes me, in hearing you, realize that, those kids are, they're standing on your shoulders. Those are the shoulders of the giants that, you unknowingly are helping those kids. You don't know any of them personally, but
yeah,
really,
I actually I posted something, a selfie today, because I love myself. I post a lot of selfies. It's true. And I said something about, when you grow up to be a 42-year-old lesbian who's like an author and all of this. And one person said, thank you. By watching you, I'm also rising, or something like that. Like, so
yeah.
It's what you're talking about. It's
Yes.
like, yeah, thank you. They literally said that, like, oh my God, yeah, I'm watching you, and I know that I also can rise. So there is definitely this thing that the internet has brought, where, people don't have to go to libraries anymore and find books that like, people can just see it from afar. And actually, like, I feel like a lot of Americans may not understand why I'm very repetitive in my, like, posts and the things. But for me, it's like, I know that my audience isn't just, if you're like an LGBTQ person in Iowa, you and I have a very different mission. Like, my mission is so much bigger than yours, because I'm trying to reach people that don't even have, like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's why I have to be so much louder and stand so much taller, yeah. Because, like, I know that, like, I'm reaching people that don't bookstores that they can go to. Yeah. They don't have, pride or anything like that. So it's like some of us have to be those beacons who are like, I am going to be transparent and fully myself so that other people can see that. It's almost like being a lighthouse. You know what I'm saying? Like so that other people can see that it's even, that's why it's important for people like me to write books and to do all of that, because again, I just see that with when I came out in 2008, I didn't realize like the impact. I thought I was just telling my story because I needed my kids to know who I am, but it's so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than me. It's so much, that definitely, like, when we are the first to do things, we do have a responsibility to so many other people.
I read your post, and that's the biggest compliment that you can get when somebody, says you're motivating to be their authentic selves. But I also read your post, and I'm like, I gotta step up my game. So there's that side of other lesbians too. They're like, shit. So you had mentioned your book. You wanna tell us a little bit more about it? What it's called, what it's about, where people can actually go out and get it, as you should, because it's amazing, and you should give yourself some reading material.
Yes, so I have a memoir. It's titled Outsider. And it was original. I had an original memoir titled Freedom of an Illegal Immigrant, but then it was picked up by a publisher, and it came out as Outsider. And it's basically my life story, I started writing it when I was in jail. So literally it opens up from when I was in jail, and then it goes through my life. And that came out in 2012, I believe. And then for the lesbians, I have an erotica. Oh. Yes, it is titled Indelicate Things. So if you want to see my skill set, you can read that book. But it's for everyone. It's not just for lesbians.
Came up with like a whole resume. Like, I'm wondering like how many numbers are gonna start coming in now. Like, she's got the whole Kama Sutra, and like this is again where I'm like, Medici, you gotta step it up.
And I also collaborated with it's either 23 or 25 other women on a book titled Women Beyond Belief, and it's about women who have from all diverse backgrounds who have walked away from religion. So there's also that, yeah. Sure. And I'm working on a parenting book because I now have a 17-year-old who looks like she'll be able to get her college education paid for. So like now I can be like, oh, here's the proof. So I am working on a parenting book as well. Yeah.
I got a little worried when you mentioned erotica and then collaborating with 20 to 25 women, but I'm glad you cleared that up for me. So I think I would just sit here and talk to you, and Jen would start, putting logs on this fire, but I think we're nearing on segment here. And Dan, you have any more questions for her?
No, I just really want to thank you for coming here and sharing your story and really being an inspiration for, many people who are listening. And I truly believe that what you've said is important, that when we show ourselves and, are authentic to the people around us, that it opens their minds as well. So thank you very much for doing that and sharing that tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
We're a fun bunch.
And I mean, talk about the free advertisement for like my next girlfriend.
You're welcome.
I feel like I've been...
Besides the ad for your next girlfriend, what else do you want? What do you want to leave people with? Because you're so inspirational. I need like that.
Yeah. So, I am actually going through a bit of a difficult family situation at the moment. That doesn't involve like me or my kids or anything like that. But even with that, like I woke up this morning and like my orange tree has like 4 little oranges and the sun came up. And so like, for me, really every day I pause in the beautiful things. And that is what living is about, when you can, no matter what is happening, whether it's chaos, whether it's what, there is always something beautiful about life and living and being alive. And I just kind of walk through everything with that kind of mindset. But yeah, another thing is also, until you find the courage to live your personal version of an authentic life, you are in a self-imposed prison, So I think that's like one of the first steps. Like you have to have the courage. Like literally when I came out, I seriously thought that I was not going to have any family anymore. And guess what? I did lose friends. I did lose family. I did. But coming out, I've slept through the night every single night since I came out. No matter who I've lost, so being my authentic self is the thing that brings me happiness. So whether you're liked or not liked, I think we live in a society where people really worry about who likes me, who doesn't, am I likable? But that's not what life is about. Like, if you are happy with yourself, if you're doing the things that define you as who you are, you can sleep through anything and everything. You really, really can. So, and that's something that I try to, impart on my kids as well, is that like they need to figure out who are you? And once you figure that out and you find the courage, figuring out who you are is one thing. Finding the courage to actually live that is a whole other thing. So you have to do both of those things, where you just have to have courage to be yourself. And the ripple effect of that will surprise you. Like I just talk about mundane things that I do every day, and then I'll get a message and someone will be like, 5 years ago, you posted about how your son made some gourmet meal, and I had not thought that it was important for my sons to learn how to cook, but I started teaching them, and I just wanted to thank you because that has changed everything. Like, and I get that all the time, where people will like say, 3 years ago you talked about, and I was just randomly bubbling. I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It's not like I was thinking that this is inspired. So, but it's because it's coming from an authentic place. It really does land somewhere, and it really does affect other people. So that's what my life has taught me anyways. And that's why I think, Teresa, have I not like been making the same 100 posts every day for like 10 years? Like, it's not.
I can confirm.
Yeah. Yeah, so because I see how it really does, like other people, we do live in a world where people are so afraid to be authentic. And I think like actually everyone wants to be authentic. It's just the fear. And once people figure out how to be that, then, life is it's just easier and it's just better.
Well, thank you. I know reading some of your posts, like I said, they do motivate me to be a better person. I have a 5-week-old niece that I want to be a really good role model for. So I know, getting to know you, learning about you, just having this chat tonight has really been an honor for me. And I do want to thank you for taking the time to, drive all the way from Omaha, Nebraska.
It was an amazing drive.
But you're going to get a girlfriend here, and then you're going to move. So we're going to have these talks again next year.
We're keeping our fingers crossed over here. Des Moines, come through Des Moines.
Right, as like you said, capital city pride is pretty awesome.
It's true, it is.
Right, who wouldn't want to hang out with this crew? So make sure you support us, donate to us, and stuff like that. But hope you enjoyed the program. I do want to thank you. If you enjoyed this and looking to support more of what we do, check out capitalcitypride.org and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you again to our sponsor, Bravo. We cannot do this without the continued support of you and the organizations like you in our community. Shout out to our venue hosts. It's beautiful. I am so hot. This fire is burning. This fire is burning like Ruth and all the ladies messaging on Facebook. And we're over and out until next month. Des Moines.
Bye, everyone.